And away we go. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms. We're doing this on Facebook. We're doing this on YouTube. If there are any problems, just yell at me in the comments section. Of course, here's how the Penguins live chats work. For those of you who are normally working today and can't get to these, I talk, you comment, you ask, you talk. That's how we do this. We've got a few topics on hand today. Penguins making some news in the morning skate as Tristan Jarry will be activated and play tonight as the Penguins host the Buffalo Sabres. That means Sergei Murashov is on his way. Although Dan Muse didn't specifically say Sergei Murashov, he kind of looked and was like, yeah, we'll have a corresponding move. Well, kind of duh, you know what I mean? Because Artur Shilovs is the confirmed backup. Also, Penguins will activate Ville Koivunen on Wednesday afternoon. They sent Sam Poulin back to Wilkes-Barre Scranton on Tuesday. So those are the transactions. Also, in terms of the lineup, Tristan Brose makes his NHL debut. Ben Kindle will take a seat for developmental reasons. It is a healthy scratch, but it's also... You know, remember back at the beginning of the season, he was not supposed to play every single game, but because the Penguins have had all of 4 games in like 18, 19 days, he could play all of these, but they wanted to give him a break. A lot of games coming up seemed to make sense. I might quibble with tonight, but, you know, it does create a very easy space for Tristan Brose to make his NHL debut. So before we begin, I've got the video for you. If you haven't seen Tristan Brose, now you guys know I certainly have pumped this kid's tires a few times. I thought he should have made the team out of training camp, but I guess ultimately it sort of made sense because Ben Kindle did surpass Brose. Brose, admitted a lot in his first media scrum as a Pittsburgh Penguin. And I've got it for you right here. So if you need a little bit of gratitude in your life, if you've ever just stopped to say thank you, here is Tristan Brose kind of stopping us before we asked any questions because he had a few things to say.
I'd just like to thank a couple people, if that's right with you guys. I'd like to thank obviously all my family, my parents, my grandparents. I'd like to thank all the coaches in my life. Bernie McBain, my youth hockey coach, Greg May, high school at Blake, Pierre-Paul Lamoureux, Carrie Eads at Fargo, David Carl, Tavis McMillan, Fergie, Massa, Denver, all the coaches in Wilkes, Kirko, Luke's, Bugsy, rookie last year, all the boys down there, and everyone that's helped me along the way. So it takes a village to get here. So I'd like to thank all those people.
What was it getting to share the news with some of those people that you mentioned?
Really cool. I think it made it probably more real, just seeing their reaction. It was really cool. You know, my mom was crying, and my dad was just grinning ear to ear, and they were so happy, and they put so much into this, like emotionally, financially, just time commitment, drive me to rinks, and so it's just as much their moment as is mine, and they're super happy. It was really cool.
What were you doing? How'd you get the message?
I was on the bus back from Providence, so I was actually playing cards, and I missed Spets' call, and I was like, I think I texted him something back, like, can I call you back in like 10 minutes? And then I showed pics, and he's like, what are you doing? Like, I'm calling back. So I went back in the bathroom and called him.
Did you win the card game?
No. It was all-time bad card game, but that's all right.
Tristan, when you don't make the team out of camp, that can sometimes not be a good experience for guys. What was your mindset going through that and going to Wilkes-Barre, and what were you working on?
I think just keep playing. I thought I had a really good camp and put myself in a really good chance. Thought I had a chance to make it, and it didn't go my way. But that's how life works. Sometimes you can't just quit. So I just kept playing hockey and doing the thing I love, and kept working hard at really everything. I wouldn't say it was one thing, but just be more consistent and just continue to get better at everything, learning game by game. So.
Well, I guess I screwed up. I just hit the back button by accident. I was trying to fast forward there on the Apple, trying to add a few more pictures as Tristan Brose was talking. You got the idea. He later recounted the story of actually when he was talking to Jason Spezza after he was done, he just sort of dropped to his knees. Now, bear in mind, he was in a bus bathroom. That's how big of a moment it was for Tristan Brose. So that's where we're at coming into the game on Wednesday. Of course, if you're going, you get a gravy boat too. I still have last year's gravy boat. Or maybe that's like 2 years old. The gravy boat. I should almost give it away. They become sort of iconic. That's what I wanted to show you. There is some, I think, topics with the rookies we can dig into here on the live chat, because there is a lot of enthusiasm on the part of fans and even media for all of this fresh air, all of these new guys to come in to the team. This Brose will be the 9th rookie to play for the Penguins this season, which leads the NHL. If I had told you back in like June or May last year that the Penguins would have 9 rookies in the lineup this season, you might say, wow, you're full of it. But here we are. What is November 26th, 9 rookies. And there's probably one more that could still make his NHL debut, and I'm thinking of Avery Hayes. I don't think anybody else would be able to jump into the NHL. The long shot would be at the end of the season if the Penguins have deemed Will Horkoff ready for some NHL action. I think Bill Zonin got hurt a second time up in the queue. I haven't been paying too close of attention to that. So otherwise, there you go. The Penguins literally will have played every possible rookie this season. I think that should make quite a few of you happy. I was a little bit disappointed to see Sam Poulin sent back to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, but in terms of the numbers game, it was all that really could be done because Poulin hadn't been with the Penguins long enough to need to clear waivers, and I know they still have high hopes, especially after what we saw last season. High hopes for Ville Koivunen. Dan Muse has talked a couple of times about Koivunen dialing in his game, getting back to what made him successful, getting in between the dots, and getting a few more scoring chances. You feel like when Koivunen gets that first goal, you almost feel like he's going to just take that big step forward. Like right now, he's sort of thinking about the game. He's a little bit timid, whereas at the end of last season, when he had 7 assists in 8 games and looked so good, playing beside Sidney Crosby, of all people, there was no thinking. And I mean that as a compliment. He just knew. He knew where to be, and he knew what to do. That hasn't been the case this year. So before I dive into the questions, let's talk about what's realistic. And when I actually hit the back button, I lost all of my photos. I think, yeah. Tristan Brose thanking everybody. You didn't see that. Let me get that out of there. I don't know about you, but I absolutely loved Tristan Brose and him saying thank you to so many people. Yeah, there's Broser, as they call him. I don't quite know what to expect in his first NHL go-round. I really don't. He is a lot faster than people give him credit for. He has remarkably slick hands. I mean, he has got some of the slickest hands in the Penguins organization, and I kid you not when I say that. From that standpoint, he really could kind of explode onto the scene here. Having said that, my guess is he's going to make a concerted effort to take care of the defensive zone first. Before he worries about, putting in 3 goals, he's going to make sure he doesn't give up 3 goals. I think that's appropriate, being a third-line center. Where he is in his career right now, I'm really curious to see how his playmaking takes shape at the NHL level. I don't necessarily know that playing with Tommy Novak and Ville Koivunen right now is a lottery ticket. I think we've seen Ben Kindle, as well as he's played, struggle to create offense in that very same situation. I have no doubt that Tristan Brose will bring 100 and, he's going to be a spark plug. That is for sure. I don't know if he sticks around for the rest of the season. He might be a guy who plays 5 or 10 games, has a chill, kind of a cooling period, gets sent back down, comes back up for good. That's kind of what I see for him. I also see him easily solid third-line center, kind of that 15-goal, 40-point potential with the right line mates, which the Penguins really kind of have struggled to put on the third line. I'm not going to pile on Tommy Novak or even Ville Koivunen, but that's been a struggle for offense on that line because neither of those guys is naturally a puck-retrieving, gritty, wall-battling guy who's going to create space. Certainly Novak and Koivunen need space to be created for them. That's kind of one thing when we sat down with Dan Muse last week, I didn't dig into some of those ideas. It was just a first conversation. Maybe if we get a chance to chat again, I can sort of, get into the real detailed hockey aspects of that. But that's what you're going to see with Tristan Brose tonight. You will not see Sergei Miroshov as the Penguins are, in fact, going to activate and start Tristan Jarry. Dan Muse, in fact, confirmed that. Let's see here. I had the Tristan Jarry photos all loaded up, too, until I stupidly dared to swipe my fingers across the trackpad. I probably should just jump into some questions here. Let me take a look at the right side. So there's Penguins practice yesterday. They were hooting and hollering and having a good old time. We'll start with the Driz. It's becoming customary here. The Driz says, unlike the West and Colorado, there is no clear-cut favorite in the East. 1 through 16, separated by 9 points. He is correct. Do you see this altering Kyle Dubas' decision-making moving forward and perhaps making it more difficult? I assume you mean more difficult to make a trade. No, I don't think it will be more difficult to make a trade because there are actually more sellers now than there were. Think back over the summer when only the Penguins had the for sale sign up. Literally and figuratively, I suppose. By the way, side note, both Mark Madden and Josh Yohe have reported talks with the Hoffman Group fell flat. Gee, where did you hear this? The Hoffmans didn't have enough cash. It's almost like someone tried to tell you that back in August and July and September. I'm not an accountant. hate accounting, but I could clearly see the writing on the wall with that one. Anywho, the Penguins were the only sellers, but the Penguins had a high price tag on Rickard Rakell and a sky-high price on Brian Rust. So nothing moved. Driz, I think the trade market right now is probably more advantageous to buying because you do have some players, and I don't care what Calgary says, Calgary is staring at a rebuild. They can deny it all they want. If they choose to ignore all of these signs, and if they try to keep 35-year-old Nazem Kadri, well, I suppose they deserve what they get. It's not like they've got a rush of prospects. The next wave of Calgary Flames are not already in the lineup. It's kind of a rough situation. Ottawa is looking to buy. Ottawa, in fact, wants to make a splash. Edmonton, mark my words on this, Edmonton is going to figure out what the Penguins realized in 2018. And that is, after a couple of long playoff runs, that you need to refresh. The legs are tired. The injuries mount. Mentally, you're tired. You're not your best. The Penguins made a brilliant move. Former GM Jim Rutherford made a brilliant move. It should have worked like gangbusters when he acquired Derek Brassard. No one anticipated Derek Brassard, basically pulling a Bubby Brister. I won't play third-line center. Well, dude, you're not better than Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby. Relax. But he just wasn't having it. Edmonton will have to sell or at least be on the market for some big-time hockey trades to refresh. The Philadelphia Flyers will probably sooner than later realize they're still rebuilding. So they will sell while New Jersey wants to buy. So there's a lot going on the trade market. Montreal begging for centers, although they're being a little bit picky, if you ask me. They're also now realizing, I don't know what happened to Sam Montembeault, but boy, he has absolutely soil-dyed bed this season. At last check, and this was a few days ago, his save percentage was down was it 850? 852 is his save percentage this year. Just brutal. So Montreal will be buying, which will again open up a few more sellers. All right, let's get to Josh. Fight for the playoffs. That is one of the topics of this here live chat. Should Kyle Dubas stand pat, or should he fight for the playoffs? Josh saying fight for the playoffs. I tend to think that Dubas will nibble a little bit. This is too tantalizing. After the not so subtle volley from Sidney Crosby's agent Pat Brisson, who said, if you're just asking me, I think Sidney Crosby should be in the playoffs every year. I mean, the intonations of that were absolutely crystal clear. I mean, there was no mistaking what Brisson was saying. Now, Sidney Crosby sort of clarified, a.k.a. walked back his agent's comments, reaffirming that he's a Pittsburgh Penguin. And he kind of said, how many times do I have to answer this? Well, as long as the Canadian media thought there was a sliver of a chance that Crosby could wind up in Montreal, you'd have to answer it 1,000 times. But to get Sidney Crosby in the playoffs one more time, or just even this year, and see what happens next year, it really would create sort of a lasting bond. Like there's no way that Sidney Crosby could get frustrated or entertain leaving if they make the playoffs this year. So you're not going to see them go after the big names on the trade market. Who was it? Andrei Svechnikov in Carolina sort of let it be known that he wasn't very happy and that if they traded him, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. That's kind of how it was phrased, too. He didn't ask for a trade, but he let them know, hey, I'd be open to that. So you're going to have these big names on the market, and the Penguins will not be in on them unless one of those teams just has fallen in love with one of the Penguins prospects with whom they are not in love. That's the only way that happens. Really kind of unlikely there. And the Penguins can't trade their first-round picks. So forget about the big names. You start looking at the depth middle six wingers, the 20-goal guys that you can get for a second-round pick. A veteran winger costs, a second-round pick. Oh, by the way, the Penguins have 3. They have St. Louis's, and St. Louis is going to finish near the bottom of the league, so that's almost a first-round pick. They've got their own, presumably somewhere in the middle, and then they've got Winnipeg's, presumably somewhere towards the end. So they've got all 3 bases covered on that. Josh, I maybe my headline was probably a little too extreme or indicated the extreme. I don't think Kyle Dubas will fight for the playoffs as much as I do think he will do what he can within the parameters which have already been set forth. Not mortgage the future, not in any way crimp the future, but if they can get something that helps them now, I do think that's a realistic possibility. Now, he hasn't done that in a couple of years. Last year, they took the chance on Philip Tomasino. Last year, they took the chance-ish on Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn. They kind of wanted Luke Schenn's presence on the third line, the third pairing, but also his locker room presence. They wanted more leadership. And Luke Schenn said, well, thanks, guys. I appreciate your thinking of me. At this point in my life, I've only got a couple more shots. I'd like to go win if you don't mind. And they got a second-round pick for him from Winnipeg. So that's how that third second-round pick came about. The top second-round pick, the one they got from St. Louis, don't forget, that's the Kevin Hayes sort of thing, where they acquired Kevin Hayes with a second-round pick. Done, right? No, not quite. St. Louis decided they wanted Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, so they needed their second-round pick back. In exchange for that second-round pick, so that they could go sign those players, Kyle Dubas is like, well, that's going to cost you. Yeah, so they got St. Louis's third-rounder last season, the 2025 third-rounder, but a 2026 second-rounder. I wonder how that's going to work out. We'll see what the Penguins can do. Make no mistake, and I know I'm kind of stringing a lot of branches here back to the trunk. Make no mistake. Look at Wes Clark's, the Penguins Vice President of Player Personnel. Look at Wes Clark's track record in the NHL draft. At the players he acquired, well, let's call it the last 4 drafts. But the 3 prior with the Toronto Maple Leafs before he came to work with Kyle Dubas, in those 3 prior drafts, the Maple Leafs had later first-round picks. Fraser Minton, Easton Cowan, Matthew Knies was a second-round pick. I'd say the guy hit some home runs deeper into that first round, second round. I'd say the guy did pretty good. Wouldn't you? And then you look at this year's first round draft. Ben Kendall. Yeah, we all criticized it. I don't think at this point we can't criticize each other for criticizing that pick. We all did it. They proved us wrong. Ben Kendall proved us wrong. Will Horkoff leads the NCAA in goals. He He was the 24th overall pick despite amateur draft nicks putting him in the 40s. And Bill Zonin looked pretty impressive in the rookie camp in July. So, yeah, if the Penguins get some draft picks or hold on to most of those picks, they most certainly, it looks like they've got the right mentality. They're in the right moment. They've got the right people to make some picks that actually help them. Big Joe. Hey, Dan. I'm excited for Bros tonight. How do you feel about 81 on 87's line? I'd like to see them keep Kindle at center, put 71 on the wing until Brazeau is back. Well, I think you maybe have been reading some of my stuff on PittsburghHockeyNow.com. Absolutely. I am a proponent deeper into the season of being able to elevate Ben Kindle into that second line role, putting Evgeny Malkin on Sidney Crosby's wing. I don't. I guess that's a bit of Canadian accent slipping. I do not like putting Ben Kindle on Crosby's wing. For one, I didn't think it was very successful. For two, he's a center. Let him acquire the knowledge that he will use in his natural position. That's just how I looked at that. Let's go to JFKST1. Who do you think is more likely to get moved out between Jari and Shelovs? You know, I guess we talked quite a bit about this on the No Pucks Given podcast. I spent probably 10 minutes on that very topic. And maybe even the last live chat, we kind of got into it a little bit. Just to set the stage here for you, JFK. The Penguins' situation is not going to change for 2 years. What I mean by that is Tristan Jarry, after this season, has 2 more years on his contract. Arturs Shelovs is under control after this season for 2 more seasons as a restricted free agent. So you're going to have this very same conundrum, conversation, situation for the next 2.5 years, where Sergei Murashov is kind of, kicking at the door that he's ready, but the Penguins having 2 goalies. Who do I think is most likely to be moved? I really can't answer that right now, and here's why. Tristan Jarry controls a lot of the situation. His play will dictate the answer. If Jarry plays well deeper into the season, if he's sporting that 911, 915 save percentage into January, I don't know how he does not become an attractive trade option. I'm not saying he's going to fetch a first-round pick. I'm not even saying he's going to bring you back a haul of any real value. But what I am saying is some team would be very wise to pay for him. Edmonton, Montreal. Now, one problem for the Penguins on that front, with Jarry specifically, is that Jordan Binnington might be on the market as St. Louis realizes the bottom dropped out. So if Edmonton can get Jordan Binnington, who's kind of proven to be a big money goalie, not always great in the regular season, a real feisty sort of guy who plays well. Jordan Binnington is Team Canada's starting goalie. He kind of came out of the blue for the Stanley Cup run, and he has proven to be good in big games. So I can see where Edmonton looks at, say, Jordan Binnington on one hand, who's kind of not so great this year, and maybe Tristan Jarry into January, who's playing really well, and still choosing Binnington because of that belief that when it really matters, Binnington is your guy. I could see that. I also could see Montreal being like, I don't know if we want Tristan Jarry because he hasn't played in big games. He missed the Rangers series in 22. He wasn't very good in the playoffs in 2021. Truth be told, if you remember back to 2021, the Penguins outplayed the New York Islanders significantly. The Penguins took the Islanders to school for 6 games and lost in 6 games because, well, they didn't get the goaltending. So I know that's almost ancient history. By this spring, that'll be 5 years ago. Unfortunately for Jarry, there hasn't been an opportunity to update his resume. So if you're asking me who's more likely to get moved, it would probably be very easy for Kyle Dubas to trade Arturs Shilovs. It is. It's not ideal, but if and when the Penguins management decides, okay, that's Murashov's net now Shilovs does become very expendable. So if I'm betting, what I don't know about Kyle Dubas. I knew this about Jim Rutherford. I knew that Jim Rutherford was ultimately pragmatic. And Jim Rutherford would have dealt Arturs Shilovs to make room for Murashov eventually, when he felt the time could not be delayed any longer. I don't know if Kyle Dubas will do that. I don't know if Dubas is pragmatic quite in the same way, or if he will choose to hold on to Shilovs because Shilovs under team control, and Shilovs is, 24 years old right now. So those are things that I wish I could give you a definitive answer, but I suppose as we get deeper into Dubas's tenure, we will find out more about his thought process. Yeah, I know that I would, when Murashov is fully baked, let me rephrase that. When Murashov is fully ready. I'm not making any aspersions what guys do in their private time. When Murashov is fully ready, I would, and if there is no market for Jarry when that happens, I think I'm a cold pragmatist as well, and you don't want to trade Shilovs, but maybe you set a price tag where if you're going to do it, benefit. All right, Michael Thompson. Yo, Dan, if Jarry plays as well as he did the 23 season, which he's kind of on pace to do so far, actually, yes, do you think the Pens will learn to trust him? Boy, you just hit on a nerve, Mr. Thompson. I firmly believe one of the reasons that Tristan Jarry is having a resurgence is the change in head coaches. I do not believe that Mike Sullivan and Tristan Jarry had any kind of good relationship. Think about this. Last week, Tristan Jarry said, learning to deal with injuries, I'm getting better at knowing my body and adjusting and understanding how to do it. It was more than a year before I felt human. Like referencing his big injury a year and a half ago. Don't forget, when he suffered, 2 seasons ago, when he was really battling injuries, and there was the rumors of, the hip problem or the back problem or whatnot, Mike Sullivan chastised him publicly for saying he was injured. No, he's not injured. No, he's healthy. Clearly he wasn't. That's a pretty big schism coach and goalie coach. That's a really big thing to say. Jari now saying it was a year before I felt human. Head coach saying you're not injured. Yeah. What do you make of that? What you will. But I don't think it's a coincidence that Tristan Jarry is back well above 900 save percentage. And there's a new head coach. Now, the Penguins clearly are playing a little more defensive hockey. They're playing more responsibly. They're actually going back into the defensive zone with some clue of what to do. They're actually caring enough to go back there and trying to stop the other team from scoring. They actually care to not provide as many odd man rushes as they possibly can. They're trying to reduce that number. They're trying to do all of the responsible and smart things, even though it might not be entirely in their DNA. All of that really is attributable to both losing the last few years, but also to having a new head coach. And Jarry, Arturs, Shilovs are the benefits of that. All right, you know what? For those of you on the audio side, this will be posted as a podcast on the Odyssey Podcast Network. We're going to take a quick break so that Odyssey and we can pay a few bills. On the video side, this continues right now. All right, 36:30. I have to always make a note for Scott. Let's get to the next question here as now the people in the podcast. Hey, welcome back. Let's go back to Michael here. Also, us as a Penguins fan have not given Jarry enough credit. He hasn't had a defense in front of him in a while. Any goalie would have struggled with these blue lines. That is very true. Gable Fisk, my man out in Vegas. So I guess it turned out our original suspicions were correct and the Hoffmans didn't have the money after all, huh? I know. I mean, listen, it's an entirely impressive lifetime to accumulate $2 billion of wealth. I understand wanting to buy an NHL team. Don't get me wrong, I'd kind of like to do it too. But I also, you can't really buy a house that is the equivalent of your net worth. Well, I guess you can't buy a toy that's the equivalent of your net worth. You can buy a house worth a whole lot more than you are. Let's see here. Big Joe. Dan, I think our team... Wait, Big Joe, do we have a team? Did we actually buy the... Anyway. Dan, I think our team... I always bust on people who say we and our rather than they and them. Actually, to this day, I feel bad. Like 10 years ago, some guy was starting out in radio. He won a contest, and they put him on my show at 93.7 The Fan. He shows up basically like 15 minutes before the show, and I told him to be there like 2 hours before. And he's just like, we, like talking about the Steelers. No, we need to play better defense. And I'm like, dude, stop. And I did like an awful thing. It's pretty funny on the air, though. Don't get me wrong. Where I looked at the producer and I said, have the Family Feud buzzer ready. And I told the guy, listen, you have to stop saying we. This is professional endeavor. And so every time he said we after the first hour on the show, I'd point to the producer, and the producer, in sync with me, starts playing the Family Feud buzzer. So every time he's like, oh, we need to... I digress. That was kind of awful of me. And the following week, they did not put him on my show. They put him on somebody else's show. It was kind of like baptism by fire. I heard when Ric Flair was just starting out in wrestling in Florida, one of the old guys said, "Welcome to the business, kid," and broke his leg. I didn't quite break the guy's leg, but I roughed him up a little bit, I guess. I don't know if it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. Dan, I think our team, with the exception of Dumba and Clifton, might be bigger but less physical than last year. I know that's not an end-all, be-all, but if they do want to make the playoffs, they need to hit a bit. Big Joe, there are numerous ways to be tough to play against. Don't necessarily get enamored with body checks or the hit stat. Generally speaking, the Penguins are a pretty good wall team. They are tough to play against because they really do take away a lot of time and space in the defensive zone. They play with speed, but they also play a little bit of a gritty game along with that speed. Now, I know Connor Dewar, Blake Lizotte, and Noel Acciari aren't exactly giants, but that is as gritty and irritating, difficult to play against fourth line as there is in the NHL. Anthony Mantha has been significantly better than any of us predicted, in part because he is playing such a good physical game. On the walls, getting to the net. Justin Brazeau as well was playing a very good combination of those things as well. Now, you know Brian Rust and Sidney Crosby play pretty good there. Ryan Shea has a little mean streak in him. If you watch him away from the puck, watch him at some of these net front battles. He doesn't lose them. And he's not afraid to put a stick where he shouldn't. He's not afraid to engage in that battle and offer to help someone sing soprano a little bit. Or just cross-check and get him out of the way of the goalie. So all of those things make the Penguins a lot tougher to play against than you might imagine, because the Penguins' hit stat is not typically very high. Also, Big Joe, take note of the Penguins' puck possession advantage. Because the Penguins have the puck, their hit stats are further diminished, suppressed, reduced, because they've got the puck. You don't hit somebody when you have the puck. So all of those things. I do not think this team is in the least bit soft. Let's go to Zachary. My idea of Dubas' attitude on the topic of the playoffs is, I don't hate, but I don't love it, but I don't hate it. Is that type? It is what it is type of deal. I suppose so. Where if he has the right opportunity, I think he will. But he's not going to go out of his way in order to do that. Let's go to Josh. I just don't think they need to tank. Who said anything about tanking? Listen, kids, there is a difference in standing pat and tanking. Okay? You just have to kind of understand that. To tank would be to trade Brian Rust for Card Raquel, see what you can get for Evgeny Malkin. I don't think Chris Letang is necessarily tradable because he's got, so much term on a 35-plus contract. You're chucking Erik Karlsson out the door for below market value. You're trading that's not what is on anybody's mind. So I think I'm going to ban the word tank. Heretofore on Pittsburgh Hockey Now, the word tank, the idea of tanking is banned. Okay, now that we've got that settled. Josh, I don't think they need to lose. Stay competitive as long as they can. If they can't make the playoffs, I see the goaltending situation right now the same way it was in 2015-16. I see Murashov being the number one goalie by February. That's pretty much in line with my thinking, Josh. Murashov has proven to be a quick study. Very quick. He will learn, especially, I was kind of disappointed for him to see Jari come back now. I thought Murashov needed one more start against NHL shooters. Because against Seattle, who was it? Was it Eberle? Somebody, I forget who beat him short side on the first goal. Was it Jaden Schwartz or Eberle? I forget. Doesn't matter. Someone beat him short side from, kind of inside the left circle. Not an ideal goal. Stoppable, but a quality goal nonetheless. And then on the game winner, Brandon Montour goes far post on him. Full speed, top of the circle. I thought that was probably the one that told Kyle Dubas, Jason Spezza, Sir John Elkins, and Andy Chiodo, Sir John Elkin, rather, and Andy Chiodo, that maybe the kid's just not quite ready yet. There's still a couple more minutes in the microwave left to go. That Brandon Montour goal. But I would have liked to have seen him stress tested one more time to see what he learned from those couple of goals. I do think that, by February, it's a very real possibility that Sergei Murashov is clearly the Penguins' best goalie. Josh tells me that Wes Clark was a former Johnstown Chief? Seriously? Oh, I've got to talk to him about this now. I didn't know. No, he was a former Chief who owned a Chief. Now, of course, Josh obviously knows I'm a former Johnstown Chief as well. Different, as a broadcaster, you're not a player. Hey, Dan, just wondering, do you ever feel like you'd like to just watch a game as a fan instead of watching and analyzing the team, knowing that you have to write and report? Happy Thanksgiving, mate. Wow, John. It's funny. You must have cosmically read my mind, because driving to the rink this morning for the morning skate, I was thinking of that exact topic. Like, it has been so long since I have been to a hockey game in which I didn't need to see something, in which I just went purely for the enjoyment of the game as a fan to have a good time. Oh boy, the last time I actually got to go to a hockey game would have been like 8-9 years ago. I went to a Wheeling Nailers game with cameraman from WPXI, my Quantum Leap buddy. And, I was his cousin or his wife's cousin, kind of close, like a first cousin close, had just graduated college and was playing on the opposing team, the Idaho Steelheads, and they were in town to play Wheeling. So even then, I'm kind of zoning in on this kid, watching, what he had to offer. We went out and had dinner with him afterwards, but yeah, it's been, geez. I digress. Yeah, John, I would love to, but you can't go back. It's impossible for me to turn it off now because it's so ingrained in me that I don't know how I would ever even consider doing it. Maybe that's kind of why I love Formula One. I mean, I always was a fan of Formula One, but really IndyCar. And now that IndyCar is kind of getting a little bit sloppy with their car design, and they have too many passes in IndyCar now because nobody can pull away. There's nothing special about the winners. Formula One is entirely special. The winners anyway. I find myself diving into F1 and Pit as sort of my moments of fandom. Big Joe says, I do read your stuff. You and Josh are the GOATs. I assume you mean Mr. Yohe. Yeah, I mean, I have joked with Josh Yohe. I'll talk out of school. I will tell you what I've told Josh anyway, and that is I chase him. I look at what he writes and I get pissed sometimes because he'll have beaten me on a story, and I'm like, you. For example, the Hoffman sale. Josh getting that story that it's dead. you know. Okay, let's go to Maine West Salon. I guess you're having some wine, hitting the salon here. Dan, do you think that the available cap space may come into play before the deadline if a team is trying to move a contract? It will come into play, 75 days? You have to keep a player. You can't eat a portion of a player's salary and flip them. You now have to keep them, I think, 75 days. So that puts that trade deadline in January. Or actually, December? Yeah, 75 days from March 7th. Yeah, like mid-December, you'd have to acquire a player in order to eat a bit of his salary and flip him. I don't think so, and here's why. First of all, because of that gap, right? You can have the best conversations with the team, but is one general manager going to trust his future trade partner will still be in the exact same headspace, the exact same situation in 2.5 months? There's way too much possible stuff to go wrong. Let's just say, prime example here, the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings want Erik Karlsson, make a really good offer, but they can't afford him. So they've got some other stuff they want to do. So who has a lot of cap space and isn't very good? Let's say St. Louis. The Penguins trade Karlsson to St. Louis with the wink, wink, nudge, nudge. St. Louis is going to trade you to Detroit. That's actually how this has to work. Do you see like the folly in it so far? Let's just say Karlsson doesn't have a no-trade clause. So now St. Louis has Karlsson. They're going to sit on him for the 75 days, leading to the NHL trade deadline. And Detroit falls out of the playoff race. Now what do you do? So I also think a lot of teams have enough cap space. There are very few maxed out teams in the league this year. So general manager Kyle Dubas says the Driz. I met the Driz in person, by the way. I was doing the radio show, Phil Bork's radio show on Fox Sports 970 down at the casino. I met the Driz. So, hey, Driz. So, say Kyle Dubas does buy a little and things end in round one or worse, not at all. Will we say, yes, we blew a chance at the top pick and unloading some of our aging vets, or can Dubas achieve a retool simultaneously? Driz, getting a top pick, that horse is so far out of the barn. That horse is in the next field galloping. You can hear the clomps of the footsteps. The Penguins might wind up in the top 10 and have a lottery shot. That is possible. But the Penguins would have to lose games. And Dubas would have to trade away players, which is just going to, it's not going to happen while they're in playoff contention. If they get the right deal, they will. But you're not going to see Dubas sell. You might see him trade, but not sell. Difference, right? It's not an either-or kind of situation. The Penguins are going to keep rebuilding under the parameters by which they're given. So if they draft 11th, 15th, 20th because the team exceeded expectations, that's just where we're going to be at here. Back to Gable. Let's see here. Player nicknames are terrible nowadays. They're missing a great opportunity to call Tristan Brose Tito. I don't get that one. Why Tito? But you're right. I'm tired. Hockey nicknames are brutal. They just add a Y onto everything. Or they don't want to call him Brosy, so they call him Broser. All right. Either way, it doesn't have to be a play on your last name. It can be something completely different, such as Nola Chari being called Cookie. Great nickname. Reports out of Edmonton are that the current goalie tandem has until Christmas to figure it out. I did see that on the TSN Insiders yesterday. Hypothetically, do you think Edmonton will be desperate and maybe overpay for a Jari or a Shilovs? Yeah. Don't forget, Edmonton made a better offer to Vancouver for Shilovs than did the Penguins. So that means at least a third-round pick that Edmonton already offered for Shilovs. Shilovs' ability to play well in big games. See also the 2024 Vancouver Canucks playoff run. See also the 2025 Calder Trophy run in which he was the MVP. He's shown he can be a big money goalie. Would Edmonton overpay? Yeah, I very much do think that. Dan, we need to get a job and move out of our mom's basement. Okay. All the junk you see behind me, including Rowdy Roddy Piper, Mean Gene Okerlund, that is an Edgar Allan Poe bobblehead. The moonshine, the large bottle of champagne, the Yoda, the Mario Lemieux bobblehead, the JFK plate, the canter, the bottle of tequila, which was given to me on my 39th birthday. I've never opened it. The couple other bottles of wine I picked up in the Finger Lakes, the Globe, the Dr. Cox from Scrubs, Funko toy, pictures of my grandmother. Yeah, those are all basement stuff. Yeah, I suppose so. When Rax comes back, the top two lines, says Michael, should be Gino, Sid, Rusty, Rax, Kindle, and Brazeau. I like where your head is at. Not sure if you were talking to me, but we don't live in Mom's... Oh, I see. Now we've got some crosstalk here. Let's see. Let's go back down to David Thompson here. You're the best, Dan. Thank you for all your insights. And now, you guys don't... Seriously, you guys make... I get uncomfortable with compliments. Full stop. Let's go to John. Dano, what do you think they will do with their cap space? I don't think they need to spend it. I think you have it if you need it. They're not going to spend it just to spend it. So, yeah, and also, listen, don't forget. Penguins fans maybe haven't exactly done their part this season. The Penguins aren't exactly at the top of the list in attendance. As of recently, they were second worst. I mean, think about that. They were below Anaheim. Penguins fans, how do you let that happen? The Anaheim Ducks, who have the smallest fan base in the NHL. I mean, you take a normal-sized fan base, you chop it in half, you put it in a blender, you filter it, you boil it to reduce it further. That's the size of the Anaheim Ducks fan base. And they were outdrawing the Penguins. Let's go to David here. Could Lizotte move to wing to make room for Bros at fourth line center? He could. I don't think you want Tristan Bros playing fourth line center. I think that is to mitigate a lot of his talent. I also think it's not best for the team because Lizotte has been so good at center. I mean, the Penguins have allowed the second fewest goals in the NHL. What that means is the fourth line is doing its job. It also means the Penguins' top line on most nights is doing its job because most nights you see Sidney Crosby matched up against the other team's best. Let's see here. Oh, here's an interesting question. With as good as Sergei has been, if another injury comes, do you see them giving Blomqvist another shot to see if he's grown? That will depend purely, Mr. Michael Thompson, purely upon Joel Blomqvist's play. Kyle Dubas a couple weeks ago on his team-hosted radio show discussing, hey, Joel Blomqvist hasn't been forgotten about. He's just been injured for the better part of 2 months. So I guess, first of all, it depends on when that injury happens. If it happens soon, no, Blomqvist I don't think would be under consideration for the call-up. I think that would be Murashov all day long. But let's just say into February, perhaps Blomqvist is really pushing hard and really took what he learned last season in both stints and applied it well and is fixing those rough patches in his game, then absolutely. You'd be crazy not to do it. Let's see here. Brandon Rickner says, I need to see McGroarty over Connor Dewar on Sidney Crosby's line. Or maybe Anthony Mantha and Rutger McGroarty with Evgeny Malkin. I don't think McGroarty worked very well with Sid last season. I don't see a lot of overlap in their games. I don't see a lot of connectivity in how McGroarty plays versus how Sid plays. I don't see chemistry there. I do think Malkin could pull back and feed McGroarty a Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, Zachary lets me know that was Mason Marchment. Yep, Mason Marchment snapped the short side wrister on Sergei. Thank you very much. Yeah, because Marchment had 2 goals, didn't he? For Seattle. Listen, I apologize for some of those small details. I will fully admit to you, at this point, having covered so many hockey games consecutively now and kind of worn myself out this season with already 3 lengthy road trips and a couple of weirdo single game road trips, like that down and back to Florida. That stuff takes a toll on me. I am not bouncing back quite as well as I did a couple of years ago. And I think it's just because of the excess of travel. Also, the number of flights and the good flights are being reduced almost daily. So to get to some of these places, oh, sure, like to get home from Stockholm. To get home actually on Monday, I had to be at the airport at like 4 a.m., which was what, like 10 o'clock Eastern time. I didn't walk in my door until 11:30 p.m. Eastern time the next day. I had to fly from Stockholm to Heathrow, trudge through the customs line. From Heathrow, I flew to Atlanta, basically a 9-hour flight. The pilot stepped on the gas and got us there in like 8.5. Great. From Atlanta, I sit there for another 2.5 hours, 3 hours in the Delta Club. Thank God I'm a member of the Delta Club. And then I fly from Atlanta to Pittsburgh. And that just knocked the stuffing right out of me. So the small details sort of get overwhelmed with headspace. I need to clear some memory. How's that? Let's go to the West Salonigan. If the Penguins have a chance of making the playoffs, does Dubas trade Karlsson if there's interest, or keep him and hope he doesn't regress after the Olympics? It all depends on the offer, man. Or madam, or ma'am. It all depends on the offer. You make a good offer for Erik Karlsson that Dubas feels like he has to take, he'll take it. I do not think, however, that any team will do that. Because that offer would be pretty substantial. I mean, look at how Erik Karlsson is playing this year. My goodness. He is playing some brilliant hockey. Absolutely. I mean, he is playing, let's call it second-tier Norris voting hockey. I mean, at this point, if I have a vote again this year, I probably put Erik Karlsson 4 or 5. I mean, I have to see some other guys, and we'll see how things wind up at the end of the season. But right now, he would be in my top 10, no question. Maybe, in that 4 or 5 range behind the your Cale Makars and your Quinn Hughes and so on. But, again, it all depends on the other team and the value of the offer. Tristan Brose' nickname. Josip Broz Tito was the dear leader of Yugo. Oh, I didn't realize Tito's middle name was Brose. Hence the name. Man, you outkicked my coverage on that one right over my head. I'm a pretty savvy news guy. I almost got fired when I was early in my radio career for some ungod-known reason. This little station I was working for in Lock Haven, PA, decided with my voice, because I had even a heavier, deeper voice, and if you really want, I can dial into the radios. Anyway, and I should be a morning news anchor, which is a big deal in a small town AM station. And they hated the fact that, every morning I led with the war in Yugoslavia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Anyway. I didn't know Brose was his middle name. Anyway, Big Joe, well, shocker, the Pens play better defense than the Steelers. Small joke, but also true. Let's get to, let's see here. Here's an interesting question. Are the Penguins really that much better this year, or has parity finally happened in the Eastern Conference? It seems like a lot of bad teams outside Buffalo have really closed the gaps. Here's something I wanted to talk about. I didn't really have an opening to do so until now. I don't know who first wrote. I saw this a couple of weeks ago in the Canadian media. Just somebody kind of just tossed off this opinion, and it made a great deal of sense to me. For a handful of years, 4 years, what was it? The flat cap, from 2020 through 2024, flat cap. So you had all these really good teams having to sell off players to stay under the cap. And then they would be trading draft picks to shed players, and they would be trading draft picks to kind of add what they could to go win a Stanley Cup. You had a lot of bad teams taking those good players, taking those draft picks, and keeping their own draft picks. So now that there's an expanding cap, it's so suppressed or compressed, the top teams, especially in the Eastern Conference, I think, that you do have this sort of parity. Because of the flat cap for several years, they depleted the best teams. So now these, what were the bottom feeders, except Buffalo, of course, the bottom feeders now have all your good players and their own draft picks and their own prospects now beginning to hit. Let's see here. We're talking about Brian Rust from NAS 26th. Rust is a hockey player. Crosby is a hockey player. That's how they are alike. Okay. Let's go to Zachary. So much Murashov talk, but they also have the likes of Blomqvist and Larson in the AHL. Any thoughts that they move on from one of them for picks? No. Larson really is an AHL goaltender. If you're with me last year, I made a point because he was posting huge numbers, like 925 save percentage, 920 down in Wilkes-Barre. But when I went down to Wilkes, or up to Wilkes rather, to watch the team, I kind of got a very good sense because I saw him play several games. And he's a very good goalie for the AHL. He's big, he moves fairly well, but he's not soft. He doesn't absorb pucks. He makes a lot of second and third saves because he was creating those rebounds. He was serving some pizzas. And so he was a bit reliant upon his team to be first on those second and third pucks. And I don't think the Penguins view him as an NHL goalie. In a pinch, injuries, whatever, third goalie, sure. But no, you're not going to see the Penguins trade Philip Larson for picks. He's the minor league goalie. With Joel Blomqvist, no, not right now. That could change, especially if he plays really well. You don't really move him for picks because you're not going to get anything of real value. You're talking a later mid-round pick. But what you do see with a guy like Blomqvist is he could be that sweetener to get a deal over the hump. Hey, we're close on X and Y. How about Joel Blomqvist? The other team says, "Oh, no, all right. There's enough potential there that makes it worth it." Zach says, "How aggressive will the Penguins be when trading for young talent? Guys like Mintyukov and Ballard and Isaac Howard. No, Howard. I know Edmonton sent Howard down to the AHL, but I would be shocked if he were in any way available." And look, Anaheim is sort of holding on to Is it Mintyukov, or how will you pronounce it exactly? He's a third pairing defenseman. I can't say I was overly impressed when I've seen him. The Penguins are not going to be aggressive acquiring that young talent that has already failed. They were aggressive in getting Rutger McGroarty because McGroarty was still all potential. And they looked at Braden Yeager, and they felt that McGroarty was a better hockey player, so they made the deal. I still wonder if the Penguins overpaid on that one. Not because McGroarty wouldn't be worth it, just because Winnipeg, completely over the barrel. And you don't often see a GM let a team off the mat when you have them pinned. But anyway, I've thought about the Anaheim situation, and there are a couple guys in the Philly organization too that I wonder if Kyle Dubas has seen enough of, or Jason Spezza has seen enough of with those, the Lehigh Valley Wilkes rivalry that can't seem to crack the lineup in Philly. And there's a few guys, but still, you're not going to be aggressive in going after these guys. The Penguins are in a unique situation where they don't have to overpay for anything. They don't have to, they don't have to do anything, and that's I think that's the situation they are in. Let's go to Richard Bananas. Richard Bananas. Maybe we're going to call you Richie Bananas from now on. Hey, Dan, Letang needs to call it quits, ? I've seen Letang play some really good games this season, and I'm not necessarily sure I understand why the up and down nature of Letang's game, but it is, and I do not think Letang finishes out his contract. Mike Sullivan alluded to this last year. Kyle Dubas alluded to this point this summer as they lauded Chris Letang for what it takes him to be able to play. Now, no one has ever offered specifics, and nobody ever will offer specifics, at least while Letang is an active player. So don't ask. But what that always said to me was that he has to overcome something or some things to be able to be in the lineup night in and night out. Obviously, a guy will not be at his best if he's fighting a chronic injury or a persistent injury or whatever it might be that he has to overcome in order to be able to play. So from that standpoint, I think say he has to call it quits. I don't want to disrespect Chris Letang in that way for everything he's done in the game and in his career. I would phrase it a little bit differently, but I do think the end is in sight. How's that? Let's go to the Hungry Hobo here. I've actually done an hour 15 already. You guys are killing me here. It is a game night. I have to get. Oh, yeah. It's. By the way, how long is horseradish good for? I started this sandwich at 1 o'clock. And it's now almost 2:30. But I've had horseradish, like really good Amish horseradish, in my fridge since like July. Is it still good? Please tell me yes. Please say yes. It's one of those, it's really pungent horseradish, like kind of clears your sinuses. Anyway, let's go to the Hungry Hobo. You need to start pranking the players and making car commercials. Chicka-chee-chee? What are you then they'll let you fly in the company jet with the team? Yeah, that would be... actually, they used to. When Dave Molinari started in the business, or on the beat, rather, he started the year before Mario arrived, so he was there in 82, 83, and then Mario... Wait, I take that back. 83, 84 was his first year, because then Mario arrived in 84 or 85. I think I've got those years right. Regardless, Dave started the year before Mario arrived. And yeah, the beat writers would in fact travel on the team charter. Boy, that wouldn't... I wouldn't say no to that for a lot of these trips, that's for sure. I'm going to... how many more? Oh my God, we have tons more questions. Okay, let's see here. Zach says, can you explain what this coaching staff sees in Kevin Hayes to keep him in a top 6 role right now? I understand injuries, but he seems to add absolutely nothing for us. Us. Them. Anyway, he's probably played one really good game. That was the Sunday in Stockholm and a few clunkers. I think that is... a marriage of necessity. I mean, think about this. Connor Dewar is on the top line. So it's, I think you're going to see Rutger McGroarty here sooner than later to alleviate one of those issues. I don't know. Maybe Dan Muse disagrees with me in terms of putting Kindle at center or the wing. And if Kindle will play the wing, you keep Tristan Brose at center. If that's going well, now you've alleviated both of those situations. I don't know. Now, Nick says, I'm not joking about the horseradish, by the way, Nick. I need to know how long this stuff will keep in the refrigerator. I'm kind of new to actually buying horseradish for my home. Can't say I grew up with it. Can't say I bought it for most of my life, but I really like slathering it on a sandwich now. And I've got some Black Forest ham, some Genoa salami, some Swiss cheese. I was out. The mustard had, in fact, gone bad. The mustard had a date on it right there that expired in July, actually. Listen, when you travel like I do, food goes bad all the time. Anyway, I don't know how long does horseradish keep? That is it for me, kids. I appreciate all of you. I want you to have a very happy Thanksgiving. Do me a favor. When you hit the bars on Wednesday night, Uber or walk home, stay off the roads. All right? And enjoy as much turkey as you can possibly get. I will be in Columbus on... I'll be at the Penguins game tonight, obviously. And I'll be in Columbus on Friday. I'll probably see a few of you or pass a few of you on 70 on my way there Friday morning. In the meantime, have fun.